Welcome to the PI show. My name's Harry Nowicki and I'm here with a colleague, Martin Smith. And Martin's off the reserve bench today, but Tony Carbone is away. He's on a frolic of his own, but we wish him well. Hope he's back next week. Tonight we're going to talk about the Transport Accident Act. It came into effect in Victoria in January 1987. And Martin Smith has been involved with this legislation since then, continuously, and he has seen every conceivable claim that's been made under the Transport Accident Act. It's a hybrid system. What does that mean?
It's a system that gives people some no-fault entitlements, and it also preserves their common law rights if they get through the gateway called serious injury.
So there's both common law if someone's at fault,
yes,
and then there's no-fault benefits, which is things like medical expenses.
Medical expenses, they have their entitlement for those. They have a loss of earnings entitlement, loss of earning capacity entitlement, and they also have an entitlement for impairment if they get above 10%. And at that point in time, whether you're at fault or you're not at fault, if you have an entitlement to damages, you have to go through what's called the common law gateway, which is serious injury.
Okay, but before anything happens with the Transport Accident Act, you've got to lodge a claim.
Correct.
And Martin, what happens if you don't lodge a claim?
If you don't lodge a claim, you can be barred via time. You have 12 months to lodge a claim. In some exceptional circumstances, they will extend that to 3 years. After the 3 years, there is another exception, which is for children under 18. They then have to wait till their 18th birthday if they haven't got it in within the 3 years, and they get an extra 1 year then to put it in.
But in effect, after 3 years, you lose any, in effect, entitlement to any compensation.
To compensation.
So you've got to put a claim in.
Yes.
And a lot of people might say, well, you know, they mightn't know that they're involved in a transport accident. There's a lot of peculiarities,
yes,
about what is a transport accident. And a lot of people, for instance, if you're a cyclist,
yes,
you may not think you're covered under the Transport Accident Act.
That's
but
right.
in fact, you are covered.
Correct.
How does that happen?
Transport accident is, without looking at the exact definition, it is an incident directly caused by the driving of a motor vehicle, tram or train. Now, where does that fit for a cyclist? In relation to the definition, I'll just go to it here. The definition was amended and includes involving a motor vehicle, railway, train, tram, which is out of control. It involves a collision between a pedal cycle with an opening or opening door of a motor vehicle. And lastly, it's got an involving a collision between a pedal cycle and a motor vehicle while the cyclist is travelling to or from his place of employment.
Now, what happened, the legislation in effect changed in 2000 after a very tragic case, yes, where the cyclist was on his way home from work.
Correct.
And then a four-wheel drive pulled over to the side. The person was looking in the mellways, yes, he wasn't quite sure where he was. And the cyclist was going full pelt down the road, didn't look up in effect, and ran into the back of a stationary car.
Correct.
Now, he said to a tribunal that that was a motor vehicle accident.
A transport accident, that's right.
Yeah, a transport accident.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, the tribunal said no, because it wasn't directly arising from the driving. Driving means...
So if he'd had his motor on, would that have made any difference? He switched his motor off and was there for, I think, the witnesses said he was there looking at the mellways for 3 minutes.
Yes. So in other words, he was a stationary vehicle for 3 minutes. He didn't have any intention at that stage of driving or having any propulsion. He was sitting, reading the mellways. He had to look up the street. He had to look in the directory, had to then go to the map, then had to work out where he was going. So it wasn't just a fleeting little stationary motor.
No. But I think, look, if he'd had his motor on and was about to go into traffic, the result might have been different.
Yes, there's a number of cases which look at these complex fact situations. Every one of them is distinguishable, but you are right. If somebody was moving into traffic, was indicating and moving,
yeah, but it was still stationary, but about to move, and was intending to drive. That probably was.
There's
covered.
a possibility that that's a transport accident.
But in this case, the bicyclist ended up with tragic circumstances.
Severe catastrophic injuries.
Quadriplegic.
Was either a para or a quad?
Or quadriplegic. And the Herald Sun ran a number of stories about him and his plight. It was very unfair. And then, to their credit, the state government, the current Labor government, came into power, amended the legislation, so it now covers cyclists who, if they're going to and from work, and they collide with a stationary vehicle, they're covered under the transport accident.
Under that definition of the transport accident.
The only hitch is they've got to put a claim form in.
Correct. If you don't have the claim form in...
Within 1 year.
If you don't lodge it, you don't start the process.
You don't start anything.
Yes.
So, and it now includes the opening and closing of doors.
Yes.
So if a cyclist collides with a stationary vehicle but the doors are opening, they're covered.
Yes.
And also cyclists who are avoiding swerving, they're covered as well. So
it's interesting that, because on the TAC website, I was just looking at it today, that was an example they gave, which was a person who is entitled to compensation where there is actually no collision with the motor car, motor vehicle, train or tram, provided the incident and the injury was caused by a feature of the driving. For example, a cyclist swerves to miss a car that pulls out in front of him. Quite a common occurrence where you see cyclists riding along close to parked cars, and he or she, in doing so, falls off the bike and is injured. Now, they haven't impacted with anything, but it was a feature of the driving that caused it.
So if you're swerving, cyclists swerving to avoid traffic.
Yes.
But Martin, say maybe if we'll turn to this scenario after the break, I think. But if the car speeds off.
Yes.
And there are no witnesses, what happens then? We'll come back to that after the break. We'll be back shortly.